Our first theme evolves around questions of public and private collaborations in the new era of AI. It is axiomatic that new technologies are dominant driving forces behind GDP growth, productivity, work, good governance, etc. But it is also unquestionable that the new technologies bring with them new questions of security, responsibility, competition, and of society in general. Let's see what Microsoft calls a responsible AI governance framework for this cooperation, and why Spain may be a good example to Hungary. Our first keynote speaker is the Data and AI Lead for Public Sector and Health at Microsoft Spain, a university lecturer and book author. He has immense experience in data and AI, project management, entrepreneurship, and telecommunications, and he's currently leading several generative AI initiatives, both in Spain with all the actors of the public sector, and on an international level as well. Please welcome Mr. Adrián González Sánchez on the stage.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, organizers, Mr. President, Christina. I'm very happy to be here, very honored. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here to this beautiful country, to this beautiful city, to explain our vision of what responsible AI is from a Microsoft perspective, but also for the perspective of collaboration between public and private institutions. What we'll bring here is just one way to do it that we hope will help with the collaboration for the next months to come. We are talking about the new era of artificial intelligence, but reality is that this is a new era in general. Artificial intelligence is evolving, but we are seeing how everything is changing for the society, for the financial models, for the productivity systems, for the students, for the governments, for people to learn, for people to adopt artificial intelligence. So let's focus on that. It's not only artificial intelligence, it's the society in the world. What do you see here? You see the printing press. Just to illustrate the fact that artificial intelligence is just one more innovation. Yes, we are talking about generative AI, but with the printing press, we had the same kind of pattern. We experienced something very similar. We were saying there's a new disruption, there's a new piece of technology that will change the way we share knowledge, share information, misinformation. And at that time, countries were discussing how to approach this innovation. Should we adopt it? Should we ban it? And there was a difference on the way how countries were adopting this kind of technology, and we saw the impact of that on how countries developed the literacy, the people learning from this result of the printing press. But this is not the first, it is not the last. Here we can see, very small maybe, if you have an issue with your vision, maybe you won't see it, but we have the printing press, we have the steam engines, we have all sorts of innovations. During the last years, we have cloud computing, we have artificial intelligence, and now we have generative AI. Reality is that the pace of innovation is exponential. We are in exponential times with an exponential impact on the economy. But this is also something positive for the society. Now we need to adapt in an exponential pace, right? Regardless of the color of these reports, we're talking about McKinsey, Forrester, BCG, all the companies showcasing the financial or economic potential of generative AI, because it's very tangible. No? You have a company and you're adopting a process supported by generative AI. You are probably saving some money, generating some money, and this is having an overall impact on the economy of the country. Which is more important is how we are analyzing this information, how we are preparing for this kind of disruption that's already happening. From Microsoft perspective and also a personal perspective, we're talking about cloud computing that obviously was an important disruption and a different model on how we can innovate. Doesn't matter if it's a private or a public cloud, a sovereign or an American cloud, but we are talking about cloud computing. We are bringing the notion of digital transformation that we already know, and now we are talking about artificial intelligence transformation. For me, it's more than a transformation, it's a revolution. So it was very lucky to have a president that can talk about the origins of artificial intelligence, so part of the pitch is already done. But just to illustrate that we are talking about generative AI since last year, or 2021 actually, with all these large language models. And well, we had previous AI revolutions. We think about that deep learning on the previous decade and the kind of innovation we're having with image recognition, sound recognition, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not new. But on this era, we have seen a lot of reports showcasing the human parity capabilities when we are saying a model can be as good as a human to perform a specific kind of activity. And this is coming every single month at this point, for image, for language, for any kind of activity. The main difference that we have today, and it's important to understand what we are facing today as an opportunity, as a challenge, is that generative AI is based on models that are very versatile. So remember, when we were doing sentiment analysis or topic classification before with traditional NLP, natural language models, well, we're using an unitary model that will train with the specific data, and then we'll obtain a result. Today, this is different with foundational models. We are using the same model to perform different kind of capabilities, which is pretty exciting for companies, for organizations. We are saying, okay, we have one model that we deploy, and then we are customizing based on the kind of use cases we may have. We can save a lot of money on integration, but also we need to understand how to make it work, because this is a new nature, a new type of model. The other part that for me is incredibly impressive is the fact that we are talking about models that are communicating not based on code. Traditionally, we were coding, programming, and we were trying to communicate with these models. Today is based on natural language. And natural language means all the language out there. It could be Hungarian, it could be Spanish in my case, it could be English. We could combine both of them in the same sentence, on the same kind of use case. We could adapt to someone coming from an Asian country if we have a website on our company. And this is very flexible. This is an authentic revolution. But also the fact that we are able to consume information in very different formats. We are talking about text, language, of course, but we are talking about images. How many people here know DALL-E 3 that we have seen these days, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney? This is an authentic revolution in the kind of things we can do as creativity system, inspiration system for artists. Then we have the audio, we have the video, and that's not a new term. We have seen that during the last years, but this is an authentic revolution that we think about. So we are facing moments in which we can leverage very powerful capabilities, but obviously we cannot be naive about the way we use artificial intelligence and generative AI. Let's talk about the Microsoft approach as an illustrative one. And there are other companies from colleagues in the industry, local companies here, international companies doing similar kind of approaches. But if we talk about Microsoft, what we are saying is that we are optimistic on the way we can use artificial intelligence as a company, but also for the society. And that's true. We can be optimistic about the potential and about the positive outcome of artificial intelligence, but we cannot be naive. We need to understand the considerations. We need to understand the countermeasures, the protection we need to add to our systems to make them work and to avoid any kind of negative outcome. And that's what we are doing today. When you are seeing on the news, we are releasing new versions of Microsoft Bing or new projects like we had last week, for example, helping a healthcare organization to detect patterns for rare diseases. This is a positive outcome. Obviously, we are working to make it safe also for the society and for the adopters. This is not new. We started in 2016, and we have been accumulating a series of building blocks, pieces of work that we have been leveraging both internally and with clients. Why I'm bringing this, not just to showcase the abilities of Microsoft and to say that this is the best approach, but also to say that this is a work of several years with different teams around the world, with different cultures, with different profiles. We're not talking about engineers. I'm an engineer myself, but we are talking about sociology, psychology, etc. And we are working since that year in 2016, that Satya Nadella wrote an initial article in an American medium to create a series of principles, standards, and actual tools that we can leverage in order to make our models safe for everyone. what we are saying is that we need to rely on an organization within the company, right? We are talking about organizational level and technical level. We need to have the support of the executive level, from Satya Nadella to other stakeholders within the company, and the role of a responsible AI office. And if you think from a government point of view, this is the same. We can have a responsible AI office in the government. We can understand how to adopt artificial intelligence. We can create this similar kind of a structure to make sure that we are adopting AI in a safe way for our citizens. There are different functions, public policy, engineering, etc., that I'll explain in a bit. But what we are saying is that AI, by the end of the day, needs to serve for a purpose, for society, and to do it in a safe way. Now, the building blocks we were explaining before, and these are actual building blocks, not only for the slides, that are with technical tools, with organizational tools that we can use. We are focusing on 4 areas, which are like the monitoring of the activities of our AI models and solutions, the reporting of these, which is, you think about, very aligned with the principle of regulation. No? Let's monitor, let's report what we are doing in a transparent way. And obviously, we need to be compliant, and this is just an extension of traditional compliance activities, right? The same way we were doing data privacy, now we are doing artificial intelligence. And auditing, proactive and reactive auditing. This is important to make sure we are doing the right thing. And within the organization, we have actual initiatives for training, which again is the same for public institutions, for governments, public training, tools, testing activities, just to make sure that something is working, and to have an established process to iterate and to improve some tools when they are not perfect. That we have demystify this month the fact that we can have non-perfect systems out there. Now, we have the responsible AI policies and the standard. I'll share with you that piece because I think that is very relevant for any public or private organization, and the responsible AI principles. We were talking before this event saying everyone has a principle, responsible AI principles. All of them are converging, no? From companies, governments, international institutions. By the end of the day, we are talking about the same, about transparency, explainability, safety, security, which is not the same. In our case, we are talking about fairness. And again, this is nothing new. It's just something that we implemented a few years ago. Now it's becoming more commodity for any single organization. The fairness of the models, the reliability, and the safety, which is a key aspect for the European AI Act. The privacy and the security, which is very important for the European and the international standards at this point. Inclusiveness, so we are not creating a negative outcome for a specific segment of the population. The transparency, because right now it's not a nice to have, it's something that we need to have. We have to have transparency for our models, and the accountability, and that's where regulation comes in place. So this is an example of a couple of pieces or tools that we have at Microsoft. One of them is the Responsible AI Standard version 2. We renovated last year because we had a previous version that we created a few years ago, and we felt like we needed to update it, right? Because this is a continuous exercise. And basically, what you will see here is how to implement on the end-to-end, step-by-step, a responsible AI system within the organization. And what are the tactical operational steps? If we are sitting, we have an AI project, and we have a system, what do we need to do in order to make sure that our models are reliable, that our processes are in place? Checklist, any kind of documentation, but also technical tools that we are connecting to our models to guarantee that there is no bias in the data, or to analyze if there is some bias in the data, why is the reason, how we can rebalance this. Now, let's talk about the opportunity, and we want to bring this opportunity from a Hungarian point of view. Think about next year, we have the presidency here of the European Union, and we are talking about the AI Act, all the discussion, the trilogues, etc. What can we get from the experience of public and private organizations to make it this like a more effective on the way we are implementing new systems for the companies, not only for the big companies, that's relatively easy, but for the medium and small companies in any country. So you think about the European and Spanish case, There were a series of developments during the last years. Obviously, we had the national AI strategy in Spain, but not only that. We had initiatives in order to create some kind of convergence with all the news we got from Europe and the European Union. We had different strategies at the artificial intelligence level, research level, but one of the most important moments was after the appearance of the AI Act in April 2021, the decision to create an authority, a new authority, a regulatory authority called the AESIA in Spanish. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it in English for that acronym, but that basically says we are supervising the algorithms. And this is a new agency that has been created right now, by the way, that is created in A Coruña in the north of Spain. And this agency is taking the principles of the AI Act, is taking the work done by the government during the last 2 years in order to put in place some controls, and even more important, to create the notion of an AI sandbox. How many people here know the notion of an AI sandbox? 1, 2, 3, more people. An AI sandbox is the notion of a shared space between the government and the companies. And companies can be provider companies, adopter companies that will work together in order to test the regulation before the regulation comes in place. And this is interesting, right? We're saying the cost of compliance of becoming compliant before the regulation is in place will be lower, but also to understand the regulation. Not all the companies can understand the regulation. Not all the governments can understand this in a simple way. So this AI sandbox is one of the opportunities that I'm bringing here in order to say, what can we do from an Hungarian point of view, for example, during the next year, in order to put in place the AI Act and to enable the public and private collaboration? Here's a reference to the document. You may think like a sandbox is something that is easy to create, right? It took several years to create the entity of a sandbox from scratch, because obviously an government organization is something we need to create with some time. But basically the description of this is the responsibilities of adopter and provider companies, the kind of dynamics that will have to test the regulation, and the opportunity for them to implement the AI measures a bit in advance. This is replicable everywhere. I'm talking to colleagues in Germany, in Canada, in Singapore, and they are talking about AI sandboxes. Sometimes can be like something that is led by the government, sometimes can be something led by the organizations. I really believe this is an opportunity, and this kind of approach can be replicated here as well, and that will be very beneficial for the implementation of the regulation. And even more, like we don't repeat enough, like the opportunity to collaborate between companies, private organizations, especially in the context of international organizations, Microsoft being an American company, but also with a European representation, no? The role of these organizations to collaborate in a humble way with local governments in order to bring the best practices and use the sandbox as that place for collaboration. So the final call to action will be related to this moment that we have today, that we are starting today here all together, that we have during the next months with the upcoming presidency. I believe that we can collaborate together. We can leverage the tools that both governments and private organizations have in order to make the AI Act something meaningful for the society, but also the adopting companies. Here are a few resources that you may want to take a look at. But I believe that there is a lot of space for collaboration, a lot of potential for everyone in Europe. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, and let's work together.